just another part of my world, my lovely 3 little children, who I'll talk more about in the future. But life would not be the same if it wasn't for my wonderful little family who I love with all my heart. And then there are people, number 3, people and community, my church, my friends that work in some of the places that I work in my industry of currently it's web design, and I also drive limousine part-time. And then there's also many other people, and now soon to be you guys. I just love people. I love connecting with people, talking to people, listening to people, hearing people. That's really important to me. And then part of the thing about people is the people that I know, my family and everybody else alike. There are special people. There's intelligent people. There's inspiring people. There's integral pieces of my heart and life that I believe we want to share their knowledge, their wisdom, their stories, and how they are unbecoming all of the things that they were never meant to be, and all the lessons that may have caused them to go off track. But together we want to work on being the best people that we can be to the glory of God. And so some of the things that make up the community of people that I'm passionate about is, like I said, church. Church has always been something that myself and my wife have been directly involved with for years in volunteer positions and leadership positions. And life is wonderful, and the church has a lot to do with that. Now, church is, again, always the people, not the building, but the people come to the building, and that's one place we serve, as well as out in the community. Just lots of great stories, and I look forward to telling those stories. Music. I've been singing since I was a little boy. The Lord has just blessed me with a love for music and an ability that I give him full credit for. And I look forward to sharing my experiences with music and some songs that I've sang, things like that. And I hope that it will be an enjoyment and an encouragement always to you. Then there's also politics. Politics. Oh my goodness. So many of us talk about how we don't want to talk about politics. And I ask myself, why? Why don't we want to talk about these things? Politics is important. It's very important. And see, I believe that one of the reasons why we don't talk as much about politics is because we struggle to be level-headed. We struggle to be honest for fear of offending people. We struggle to have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with us because it's hard to maintain patience and all that kind of stuff and love and understanding. And so my goal, my desire is to be able to talk to people, different beliefs, and hear the stories, hear the opinions, and the information. And I really look forward to a lot of great stuff. And now the podcast community. I was surprised to find out that podcasting is huge. And there's so many people. There's Facebook groups. There's people all, even in the area where I'm at here in beautiful Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Ottawa is the national capital of the country of Canada. Some people think it's Toronto. If you're from the States, sometimes people think it's Toronto. But nope, it's Ottawa. And we'll talk more about Ottawa because Ottawa is a wonderful place to live. And I am living here. I am a permanent resident of Canada. Have been since I moved here. I am in the near future hoping to get dual citizenship because I am from the United States of America. Yes, I am an American, but I'm a proud member of the Canadian community, soon to be a dual citizen as soon as I get this paperwork done. So that's that. Now, what is the Unbecoming Podcast all about? So the Unbecoming Podcast started from a quote and a Bible verse that that I found, and the quote is the quote that says, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. Now, that's a little bit Yoda-ish. Now, I know it sounds a little bit backward, but if you stop and think about it, everybody is trying to work their way up in the world. They're trying to find that perfect job, that perfect person to marry, that perfect situation to get their way into all the good things in life. But the reality is, we all have things, if we're honest, we all have things that we need to learn, that we need to grow from. And there's good things and there's bad things. That's the reality. I am, sometimes to a fault, I am a positive person. I try to be open-minded but positive. Because the reality is, there's nothing that I can go through, in my opinion, there's nothing that I can go through that I can't get through with the help of good choices, and ultimately with the help of the one that I know and I love, and that is God. And so I look forward to sharing about that. And another thing in regards to the Unbecoming podcast is that I felt I do a lot of conversations and communications with people on Facebook and other groups, just discussing articles and situations that are going on. And as probably most of you know, it can not only eat up a lot of your time, but often it probably doesn't ultimately reach the people that you want it to reach. Not only does it not necessarily reach all the people you want to reach, but it also may not actually have the effect that you want to have, because people are bombarded by that. And I decided that, maybe it's going to be a little bit better just to put something out there like this over the internet, and welcome people, whoever want to listen, whoever care to hear, and talk about these things so we can hear each other and listen to each other and hear our voices, and kind of talk about it this way. Because on Facebook, one of the biggest problems we run into on a regular basis is the fact that is you can't hear the tone of voice of people, and you read things and you read into things. Not that it doesn't happen when you're talking back and forth, but there's a lot better opportunity to hear and to listen and to talk back and forth and to hear the tone of people's voices, and be able to understand and have more empathy, because you're not just reading a sentence that makes you upset. And then, of course, one second here, Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." And that is a verse that goes along with the purpose of this podcast, the Unbecoming Podcast. The idea that we are running a race, the idea that that life weighs us down on a regular basis, and there's so much to think about and to talk about, and you can become overwhelmed, and you can become sad, you can become angry, all those kind of things. And at the end of the day, what do we want to do with that? And I love the idea of talking about it and thinking about it and listening and learning about how we can learn how to strip off some of those things, and who we give those things to, and encouraging everybody. And so this show is for people of all walks of life, all races, all ethnicities, no matter where you're from, poor, rich, it doesn't matter. I hope that everybody gets something out of it. And if you don't want to listen, that's okay. I hope you would try. So one of the best ways to to cut to the chase. If you want to, if you're a busy person and you want to just kind of know what the particular episode has been about, is going to be in the show notes. The show notes, each episode will be in the description of the podcast. You'll see basically what time slot within the show we started talking about a particular topic. So that's one of the best ways to see if something's going to be of interest. Also, the name. I'm going to try my best to come up with some good names to describe what the overall show is about. But we will be talking about lots of different things and lots of different subjects. And sometimes I do tend to get those rabbit trails, and I'll try to be better with that. But then the squirrel, there's a squirrel, and that just happens to me. It's just the way it is. So I'm looking forward to having some co-hosts. I'm looking forward to inviting some wonderful people on the show. And speaking of people coming on the show, co-hosts, interviewees, just a few people you can look forward to. One is going to be Mr. Joshua Hyatt. Josh Hyatt is a father, a teacher, and one of my best friends. He and I were friends not only in college, we lived together with a couple of other Christian guys, had some of the best time of our life, and I look forward to having him on because he really has a great perspective. He's been a great encouragement to me, and I have learned a lot of what I know from him, and just has a great example, lots of great stories, and a great wit. He's funny, he's random, he's quirky. That's what you'll find about me too. There's a lot of quirk going on, the quirk factor, the old quirk factor, just like Bob.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm a schizophrenic, and so am I.
Well, I'm not, and neither is Josh, but Josh is very random like that. I certainly. And then there's Sandra Friedman. I talked about being interested in politics, coming from the United States. It was very interesting. It's such a learning curve coming to Canada, trying to learn about what is the Canadian political system. And I was very, very involved kind of in the political process back in the United States when I was in college and for years, and I'm still very much interested in it. I keep my eye on the stories, and I watched both sides of the aisle, and I am fairly balanced but liberally conservative. That's me, fairly balanced but liberally conservative. And Sandra Friedman is actually a young woman who I actually just recently met, although I didn't realize that I knew her through a wonderful friend of mine from my church. Sandra Friedman is running for the federal conservative nomination candidate. So she wants to be a candidate, so she's running for the nomination in the Canada-Carleton district of Ontario, in the Ottawa area here near where I live. And she's a smart, intelligent, funny, very kind young woman, and I look forward to having her on the show to talk to her a little bit about what she's doing, as well as about the Canadian political system. I'm looking forward to getting involved with that. I think it's really important, especially in the life of a believer, a Christian, to be actively involved and understanding and playing their part in the process of politics. Then another exciting one, Herb Fowler. Herb Fowler is actually a cousin of mine. I believe he's a second or a third cousin. It's my father's cousin. I've got to iron that out. But Herb is a very, very learned man, and he's been mapping out the ancestry of my family. And it's, if anybody, have you ever had a chance to listen to these different ancestry stories and backgrounds? It's so interesting. And I just love learning about about history. I love history and the past. And Herb is going to Ferb. Oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm thinking. Herb. Being in Canada, the pronunciation of words, herbs and herbs and about and a boot and all that kind of stuff, it just kind of thrown me for a loop. But Herb, I believe, Flower. Oh my goodness, Herb Fowler is going to be one of my guests in the near future. Then Teresa Blaze. Actually, you know what? It might be Blay. See, there I go again. Pronunciations. I pride